Could the Pittsburgh Steelers be working on a trade to land stud wide receiver Chris Olave from the New Orleans Saints? A report earlier this morning claims that is the case, but I'll let you guys know why I am skeptical. Then our second topic today, we're going to talk about ESPN's Ryan Clark, former Pittsburgh Steeler and Super Bowl champion with this organization, had a surprising take on Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin yesterday. And then I'll finish up today's show by letting you guys know why I want, and I really want, Aaron Rodgers to sign on with the Pittsburgh Steelers before the start of OTAs in 2 weeks. But before we get into the content here, we are almost to 84,000 subscribers here on the channel, guys. We're just over 160 subscribers away from getting to 84K. There's only 7 other channels here at Chat Sports that have gotten to 84,000 subscribers, and we could be the 8th one right now if you guys click that subscribe button right now. New viewers, we are counting on you guys. All the real ones that have already clicked that subscribe button, they can't help us out. It's only the people that haven't subscribed that can help us get to 84,000 subscribers. And the reasons why you subscribe to the channel, guys, is because we got breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a big move. If they sign another receiver during the offseason here, if Aaron Rodgers decides to come out of his hole and sign with the team here, we're going to have breaking news coverage for you guys. We also have daily Steelers videos giving you the latest updates surrounding this football team. We have weekly live shows every Monday and Thursday. We also have Madden streams during those live shows. It's all 100% free, guys. So I greatly appreciate if you help us get us to 84,000 subscribers and click that subscribe button today. So could there be a trade in the works for Chris Olave? Andrew Filipponi from 93.7 in Pittsburgh claims that the Steelers are quote-unquote working on a trade for Chris Olave. This was the tweet from this morning. He is getting it from a source from Adam Crowley, who also works for 93.7, who claims that somebody within the know, this is the exact tweet from Crowley right after Filipponi posted this morning. He said, "To be clear, I had someone who would be in the know text me, quote unquote, Chris Olave." All right, so is this real? Because Chris Olave is a big name, former top 15 pick in the NFL draft, as an awesome receiver. Is there actually a chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers could make this happen? Well, for me personally, guys, I think that the wording that Filipponi uses here, saying that the Steelers are working on a trade for Chris Olave, is misleading, all right? Because, teams inquire about players all the time, but just making a call to see if a wide receiver is available is not exactly the same thing as working on a trade. For me, working on a trade is the teams are both mutually interested in a trade and they're trying to come to terms on a deal. That is not what's happening in this situation. And I believe the likely reality of what the Steelers probably did is that I do believe their interest in Olave is real, and they would be interested in a trade for him, and they probably did call the New Orleans Saints to inquire about his services and what it would cost to get him in their building. But I kind of doubt that New Orleans is going to let him go for the price tag that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be willing to pay. And this has been echoed by a bunch of other people on Steelers Twitter today, starting with Kevin Adams, host of the Steel Here podcast. Says, update, adding a little light here to the Chris Olave situation per sources, quote unquote, trying, interested, but not close. The Nick Farabaugh from Penn Live said this, as sources say the Steelers have called the Saints about Chris Olave and are interested, but they don't expect much to happen here. That and more, and then he has some piece that he talks about what he's been hearing around the situation. And listen, man, the Pittsburgh Steelers have called a number of teams around a number of wide receivers. I know for a fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers have called the Green Bay Packers inquiring about both Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks. All right, now obviously no trade has come to pass on either of those receivers yet, but just making a call to see about the availability of certain receivers is not the same thing as working on a trade, as Filipponi said in his tweet this morning. Zachary Smith from Steelers Now also said this, asking around about the Chris Olave thing is anything more than just the Steelers calling New Orleans to check in. Not to say something for sure won't come of it, but if that's quote unquote working on a trade, they've worked on a lot more than just a Chris Olave trade, LOL. And that's true. The Steelers have made a bunch of calls surrounding a bunch of different receivers. So, I guess they're working on a trade with like 10 other teams right now because they've called other teams about certain wide receivers. Now, what I'll say about the Olave situation is that if the Steelers can somehow land Olave and get him on this roster, he would be a hell of an addition to put on the other side of DK Metcalf in the Steelers offense. He's still very young, only 24 years old. He's got decent frame, not the best frame in the world. He's kind of a slender receiver there at 187 pounds, but he's known as an elite route running type of receiver, and that's exactly what he brings to the table. Still has 2 years left on his rookie contract. The Saints just picked up his 5th-year option, so I really don't think the Saints are going to want to come to the table after picking up that 5th-year option, guys. I think the very earliest that they would consider a trade for Chris Olave is probably next offseason when he enters the final year of his rookie deal. But when it comes to Olave here, guys, he's among the NFL's legit top 5 most elite route runners in the game. His foot quickness, his change of direction ability, his ability to manipulate defensive backs that are covering him. I mean, he's uncoverable, man. He really is. He creates so much separation. He's got very reliable hands. He's gotten better as a contested catch winner since his days at Ohio State, and he's also a vertical threat as well. So he brings the whole package as a legit Z receiver in the National Football League. So if he's available, I'm absolutely in on trading for him. And this wide receiver room right here, guys, where if you have pretty much 2 number 1 receivers on your offense, a 1A and a 1B there with DK Metcalf at the X and Chris Olave at the Z, and you still got Roman Wilson, who this team believes in, Calvin Austin III is a really good rotational player, and then Robert Woods, who's excellent veteran depth. This would be a legitimately good wide receiver room for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2025 season. Now, when it comes to the risk with Olave in his profile, it's all the concussions. 5 concussions in his career dating back to his time at Ohio State, including 2 last year. It's a running joke on Saints Twitter that Derek Carr continues to throw hospital balls to Chris Olave, and unfortunately he's been on the brunt end of that, leading to concussions. So a lot of concussions in his profile, and a couple more, and he might be considering retirement. So that's the risk of getting Chris Olave, even though he's a fantastic player. A couple more concussions, especially in 2025, might put his entire career in jeopardy at that point. So what Pittsburgh would be willing to trade is a 3rd-round pick. And I think that's a fair offer for somebody with the concussion issues that Chris Olave has, all right? The Steelers have 3 3rd-round picks next year. I think they'd be more than willing to let go of one of those 3rd-round picks if it means that they can get a legit number 2 Z receiver to put on the other side of DK Metcalf, and they'd be willing to take on that risk of the concussions because of the upside that Olave brings to the table as an elite route runner. But the problem here, guys, is that I just don't think the New Orleans Saints are going to come to the table. If you're in the Saints situation, guys, put yourself in their shoes. Why in the hell would you make this move? All right, you look at their wide receiver room right now. You take him out of their wide receiver room. This might be one of the worst wide receiver rooms in the entire National Football League. I love Rashid Shaheed. He's awesome as a deep threat, but he's not a number 1 guy. He's a complimentary piece. Brandon Cooks is ancient, even though, still okay football player. Bub Means, Cedric Wilson Jr., no thanks. I mean, I'm okay if Chris Olave is a part of this group, but you take him out, and this wide receiver situation really goes downhill fast for the New Orleans Saints, and for a team that just drafted a young quarterback in Tyler Shuck, and they're going to be trying to give him every opportunity to prove that he's their franchise quarterback of the future. Why would you take away his bona fide number 1 weapon? That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me if I'm in the New Orleans Saints situation, especially because Olave is still extremely affordable against their cap because he's still on that rookie contract. So if I'm New Orleans, there's no way I'm even thinking about trading Chris Olave, which is why this is probably unlikely, guys. But you take a look at some of the top, more realistic options that I have compiled for this show here. Romeo Doubs out of Green Bay, I think, would be an awesome addition. The Packers have a loaded receiver room. Doubs has kind of feuded with the organization before. He's complained about lack of targets, and now that the Green Bay Packers have added Matthew Golden, those targets are only going to go down. Plus, he has awesome chemistry with Aaron Rodgers shown off in his rookie season in 2022, and I don't think he'd be that expensive in a trade. Keenan Allen, formerly with the Chicago Bears, currently still a free agent, I think would be an awesome addition to this offense. Can play inside and outside, good size, really good route runner, fantastic locker room presence. Dontavian Wicks, a really good run blocker, good size and route running combination from him. Quentin Johnston, kind of a yards after the catch type of threat from the Chargers, and then Jalen McMillan, maybe a little bit lankier, but inside-outside versatile route running specialist from from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you're looking for somebody that is more realistic that the Steelers can add this offseason, I would take a look at this list of 5. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Would you trade a second-round pick for Chris Olave? All right, if it means getting this team a legit number 2 wide receiver to go along with DK Metcalf, would you trade next year's second-round pick in order to make it happen? For me, this is too rich. The most I'm willing to offer is a third-round pick. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. A for accept or D for decline. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm telling you about Fanatics today, let me know if you'd accept or decline this trade down there in the comments. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Fanatics, where you guys can pick up a brand new DK Metcalf jersey and put that in your closet today. Go to chatsports.com/DK. Put that link in the comments and description of today's show. And if you click that link, chatsports.com/DK, and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds here at Steelers Talk. So if you're already planning on getting a DK Metcalf jersey and you guys want to help out the channel as well, all you have to do is go to chatsports.com/DK and make a purchase. Okay, now let's get into some surprising comments here from former Steeler, all right, during the Tomlin era, Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ryan Clark, who says that he thinks that Mike Tomlin's voice is quote-unquote run stale in the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room. This is what Clark had to say on First Take yesterday. I believe that Mike Tomlin is unfireable. I believe if Mike Tomlin walks away from being the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that should be his decision. As I've said time and time again, that I do believe that should be the decision that he makes. I believe Mike Tomlin should coach in another organization. Mike Tomlin should be a fresh voice somewhere else, because I believe, as great as a coach as he is, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, I believe his voice has run stale in Pittsburgh. I believe he's allowed that team to reach the highest of heights they're going to reach unless they can get a top-tier quarterback. So essentially, Clark is advocating for Tomlin to pull an Andy Reid and to go somewhere else, even though Reid was fired by the Philadelphia Eagles, calling the Steelers head coach unfireable. Now, I have a couple of issues with what Clark said on First Take yesterday. My first issue is Tomlin is not unfireable, okay? I think that he is somebody that is actually on the hot seat heading into this season, because it's been so long since the Pittsburgh Steelers have won a playoff game. You can sense the urgency that owners, Art Rooney II, has in terms of, getting a playoff win. Of course, Art Rooney II said earlier this offseason, that he heard the calls to fire Mike Tomlin at the end of the 2024 NFL season. So listen, man, the expectation for the Steelers is to not only get back to the playoffs, but to win a playoff game. So if they're not even in the playoffs this year, I think that he's going to end up getting fired. So I do not think he is an unfireable head coach. I think that is incorrect. Then my second issue with Clark's statements is I don't think Tomlin has lost his voice in the locker room. All right, I think it's impossible for Mike Tomlin to lose his voice in the locker room, because I think he is one of the most charismatic leaders in all of professional sports history, let alone the current slate of coaches in the National Football League. This guy, if you listen to the people in the locker room, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, everybody in that locker room talks about how he commands a room. We saw it on Hard Knocks just last year. It's all business inside that meeting room when Mike Tomlin is talking shop when it comes to football, all right? That's not the issue with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's not the issue with Mike Tomlin. That is his biggest strength, not a weakness. But that doesn't mean Tomlin doesn't have legitimate concerns and legitimate things that are not as good, all right? First of all, he's failed to get the offensive coordinator right pretty much ever since Todd Haley, right? Ever since he left and they've been trying to replace him, it's been terrible. And they haven't won a Super Bowl, right, since Bruce Arians was here as the offensive coordinator, okay? They've also failed to replace Big Ben, and that does go back to Mike Tomlin, because he's the one making the decisions as to which quarterbacks they're bringing in. Not only did they make a big swing and a miss on Kenny Pickett, but they've had some, lackluster decisions outside of that as well. Just look at Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. Then also the defense first team building. This team has had the most expensive defense for the last half decade plus at this point, all right? That's Mike Tomlin putting a priority on these defensive star players, and it's an offensive league. I just don't know if that kind of team-building strategy works in the National Football League if you want to win championships anymore. Then finally, the lackluster game management. How many times have we complained about Mike Tomlin not throwing a challenge flag, or throwing a challenge flag for a stupid play, or not using timeouts correctly at the end of the half or at the end of a game? He is not a good game manager, and that is one of the biggest weaknesses weaknesses that he brings to the table as a head coach, but none of these weaknesses have anything to do with his leadership ability, his ability to command the locker room, and to command the attention and the imaginations of the people inside the Steelers building. But the pressure is certainly on Mike Tomlin. I don't want to make it seem like Tomlin's job is safe, even though he's been the longest tenured head coach in American professional sports at this point, now that Greg Popovich has officially called it quits as a head coach there in the NBA. I think that if the Steelers don't make the playoffs this year, he is done. I think the Steelers will probably, quote-unquote, mutually part ways with Mike Tomlin, and they'll be looking for a new offensive head coach next year before they take their new franchise quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft. So the pressure's certainly on Mike Tomlin. He needs to win, and he needs to get to the playoffs here once again in 2025 in order to remain the Steelers head coach in the future. So true or false? Let me know down there in the comments section. The Pittsburgh Steelers will fire Mike Tomlin if they miss the playoffs this year. I think this statement is true. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Type T for true or F for false. So final topic I want to discuss today, guys, is that we're only 11 days from the start of organized team activities, otherwise known as OTAs for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as of right now, Aaron Rodgers has not signed on the dotted line to be this team's starting quarterback. And, with OTAs starting in 11 days, I would really hope that on that first day of OTA practices, when the helmets go on and the practice jerseys go on May 27th, I hope Aaron Rodgers is wearing one of those jerseys and one of those helmets. I really, really want him to be there. All right? And I don't care if Rodgers doesn't want to sign during phase 1 or phase 2 because he doesn't want to, do the meetings and the lifting and all the kind of menial type of shit that they do during phase 1 and phase 2. I don't care. He can work out on his own. He stays in tip-top shape. He's got other things in his life that he wants to attend to. Fine. But I think, especially for a new quarterback coming into a new system, playing with a new center and new wide receivers, all right, and having a new play caller that he's never, worked with before, I do think OTAs are important because he needs to get to know these guys. He needs to, start building that chemistry and that trust and that communication with those guys. And can that stuff be ironed out in training camp? Absolutely. But you can knock out some of that get-to-know-you stuff during OTAs so that you can hit the ground running once training camp gets here. I think participating in OTAs can accelerate that process of Rodgers getting comfortable with the players in the Steelers locker room, getting comfortable with Arthur Smith getting comfortable with Aaron Rodgers as a play caller, with all the audibles, with the cadence. We know Rodgers has a very legendary cadence. Everybody, the offensive line, the wide receivers, everybody has to be working in unison and have that trust and communication with them if they're going to be able to draw people off sides like Aaron Rodgers loves to do. And, when I take a look at, in years past, when he went to a new team with the New York Jets in 2023, Rodgers was thrilled to be at OTAs, all right? Huge smile on his face, talking about how it's been a dream to be a part of the organization, all this different stuff. And he was a participant all the way through OTAs. And the only time he didn't participate in OTAs at New York was when he had that pre-planned Egypt trip last year that we won't get into. But plain and simply, he made OTAs a priority in New York. So I would want him to make OTAs a priority, especially his first year here in Pittsburgh. Now, if he was here 4 or 5 years and, he's been working with Arthur Smith 4 or 5 years and he's been working with all his receivers for that amount of time, I don't give a shit if he's here for OTAs. But being a new quarterback in a new system, getting to know these players, building trust with these new players, I think OTAs are important, all right? So I would be a little bit worried if he doesn't feel the same level of enthusiasm, if he doesn't feel the same amount of excitement going to OTAs with the Steelers as he did in 2023 and 2024 with the New York Jets, all right? But I do think that him signing with the team after OTAs is 100% a possibility. We know that the history with Aaron Rodgers. Back in 2020, he tried to, put in the collective bargaining agreement that the offseason program wouldn't start until August 1st. Essentially, training camp is when the players would start working. So he doesn't like the offseason program. He traditionally hasn't liked it. And it's very possible that he's sitting at home right now saying, you know what? I'm a free agent. I'm just going to sign after mandatory minicamp where you can't fine me for not showing up to these things. And that's absolutely a possibility at that point. But I would be disappointed in Rodgers if that's the approach that he takes, because I would hope that he wants to get on the same page. I would hope that he would want to take every possible opportunity to get on the same page with his teammates here in Pittsburgh to give this team the best possible chance at success in 2025. Now, for the record here, guys, I would take Aaron Rodgers with no OTAs if I needed to. All right, if I'm the Steelers, I'm okay waiting until after OTAs. I would much prefer him to be there for OTAs, but let's face it, guys, Rodgers with no OTAs is better than any other option that they currently have at their disposal with OTAs. All right, in terms of the ceiling, in terms of potentially finding some of that Tom Brady or Brett Favre late career magic, your best chance to win a Super Bowl here in Pittsburgh in 2025 is with Aaron Rodgers, whether you like it or not. So as somebody that tries to focus on trying to put this team in the best position to succeed, I would be okay with signing Rodgers after OTAs, but as I've been discussing throughout the course of this segment, I think that it's absolutely important for him to be there. I think it would be awesome if he wanted and he was excited and enthusiastic about signing on that dotted line and becoming a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback before the start of OTAs. And I think that it would be definitely a good thing if he were there when the team starts those practices on May 27th. But predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will Aaron Rodgers be at any Steelers OTAs this year? Will he be there for mandatory minicamp, which is technically an OTA? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Give me a yes or a no. At this point, nothing would surprise me, guys. I could see him signing early next week so that he can get himself ready for OTAs. 2 Tuesdays from now, I could see him sign right before mandatory minicamp and only participate during that. I could also see him signing shortly after OTAs once mandatory minicamp is over, and then his first practice as a Steeler is in training camp. I could see all those things being a possibility at this point, but for me personally, I definitely hope he signs early next week. But that's it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for making it to the end. I know today was a little bit of a longer one. We covered a lot of ground on today's show. I hope it was informative for you guys. And if it was and you enjoyed yourself today, if you made it to the end, click that subscribe button because we got more Steelers content coming your way this weekend. And hopefully, we get a decision on Aaron Rodgers here soon. And if that happens, we're going to have breaking news coverage for you guys right here on this channel. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.